Here we go.
No Nation. Welcome to another episode of the Renegade Rundown. As always, my beautiful, lovely co-host, Jen Santee. You can find her on X at Jen Santee. 1890 is right here with me, also known as Jen Knoll 2013. Right below me in the middle of the screen down here is my good friend Jesse Codger of plantthespear.com, aka at plantthespear1. You can find him on X and right here on YouTube. If you're not already subscribed or a member, get over to at plantthespear right here. I believe they just dropped a video. I know they dropped the video today, so you can go check that out. Thanks for joining us, man. Glad to have you back, Jesse. We got a lot of highlights to talk about. The ACC meetings, EA college football drop. We've got all kind of new odds for the football team. But welcome back, man. How's it going, brother?
I'm good, man. Appreciate you having me on. Just, staying busy. It's the summer cycle seems to be so crazy with football. It's like nothing, and then 10 things all at once. So it's like you're like, how am I even gonna fill an hour? And then all of a sudden it's like you need 2 hours. So man, it's cool though. It keeps you going. But yeah, man, just excited. We like you said, man, we just dropped a video earlier, and then I'm excited to be on here talking with you guys. Appreciate you having me back on.
There's no doubt. We appreciate the fans hanging with us. I appreciate Jen hanging with me. A lot of people drop down to doing like one video a week, one every 2 weeks. Some people just take 2 or 3 months off. So doing 3 of these a week, 4 now if you count the roast, 5 if you want to count the voice of college football, and then, if you want to get into Jen stuff Jen does. So we really just like made a big point to want to be here and hit as many of these shows as we can and stay consistent. But yeah, there'll be a lot of news coming, and it won't be so much manufactured, but it is what it is. We want to provide a show for you. So that's why we're here talking about the Noles 3 times a week. But yeah, man, these ACC meetings, we can start there and talk a little bit. We were talking about it, off screen. There isn't a bunch of, on the record stuff, information coming out of there, anything really breaking. Of course, that's going to be the best information you're going to hear is going to be more secondhand. I encourage y'all to go check out the Spear Addicts episode from Thursday night. Chris has a bunch of good sources. They had a lot of good information on there. But we'll let you start it off. What was, your main thoughts coming out of the ACC meetings? Did it change your kind of thoughts on where like the rest of the conference members sit at all in this thing? Is it still FSU and Clemson kind of by themselves? Do you think we're starting to slowly but surely chip away at the facade of the Atlantic Coast Conference?
Well, man, I think you kind of have to divide it into 2 groups, kind of like the haves and the have-nots. I think the anyone who can have a place in another conference, who feels like they can get a seat at at another table, is going to want out. I mean, you have to look at the totality of things. Like it's like Alfred said, man, they're doing what's best for Florida State. This was never about like screw the ACC or whatever they're out to get them or something like that. It's just about, man, like they see the writing on the wall that you have to compete on a national level. You look at the revenue gap now. I was just reading an article earlier that last year it was around $19 million. It's expected to grow $20-30 million in the next coming years. And like we were talking about before the show, you might have to start doing revenue sharing now. So the time for needing money is never greater than right now. And I think you have schools like a Wake Forest, or some of the bottom feeders, the Boston colleges, that they don't really have anywhere to go. This is as good as it gets. And so they have to kind of hope this works out for them in the ACC. But whereas you have Florida State and Clemson, and I think people also have to remember that these are 2 schools that compete against SEC schools in Florida State and Clemson directly every year. So you have to answer to your boosters, your board of trustees, all these people, your fan base, why you can't keep up with a school that makes $40-50 million more than you, whereas some of the other schools are kind of protected from that. They're not. Wake Forest isn't realistically trying to make the playoffs every year. I mean, of course they're trying, but that's you can wish on one end and what in the other. Yeah, but I think Florida State and Clemson are in that boat, and I think UNC wants to be in that boat. So I think you're seeing them. They're a house divided right now, and they're going to have to figure out what they want to do going forward. But I just think, man, like they didn't flip any tables, in Amelia Island. It wasn't anything crazy like that. I'm sure that, the tension had to be like thicker than a two-day old bowl of grits or something. But man, it's going to be, I think it's I don't think anybody trusts anybody right now. I think that's the big thing. You know, I said on our show earlier, I think it's like them old Westerns where everybody's like standing in a circle with guns on everybody else and no one really knows who to shoot. It's like no one trusts anybody. So I think it's just kind of everybody's out for themselves, and we're going to see what happens, man.
All it's going to take is that one first shot, boom, before chaos. There's no doubt about it. But go ahead, Jen. What did you think? Was there anything new you've heard the past couple of days?
I wish I could have been there because I think it would have been so interesting. I imagine the Spider-Man meme, you know, with them all like shooting at each other, right? That's kind of how I feel about it. And also, I'm gonna bring out my Mean Girls reference because I feel like it's the movie Mean Girls where they're sitting at a table, and I can only imagine like Florida State and Clemson sitting at a table and like looking at other teams like, you can't sit with us.
Yeah.
You can't sit with us. Like we're fine. You're not wearing pink today. I just wish I could have been there. I think that would have been fun. I did see where Jim Phillips finally admitted that it's a look-in option by ESPN because originally nobody was talking about that. I think he finally got asked about it and had to actually acknowledge it. And I also think that the panic out of North Carolina is interesting from that meeting that Bubba Cunningham was kind of supposedly called back to North Carolina. We don't know what's going on. Seems like something is, but that is, I wish I could have been there. It seems like a telenovela, you know? I mean, you know, I love chaos. I love drama. So cool. I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it there. That's another thing we were talking about off screen. If you've been following this with us week to week, you know we've had a ton of people on here. We've had Doug Rohan on here several times, all kind of different people talking about the case between Florida State and North Carolina, or the state of North Carolina, or the ACC inside of the state of North Carolina. Geez, I can't talk. But we've been talking about how UNC could possibly enter the fray here. Last year, this Bubba Cunningham guy was talking all this mess about Florida State and how dare they, this stuff. Well, lately, more and more the trustees, the board of governors, board of regents, the people at the top over there at UNC are coming out. There's one in particular named Boliek who really just like cut them no slack. Like, look, we need to go find a bigger league. We need to do this. We need to do that. And like Jen said, we're hearing about our guy, Bubba Cunningham, being there and not really representing the interest of that board of governors or those board of trustees. So he's called back. I don't know the exact story there. Like Jen said, it's like a telenovela. We're trying to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah.
And in amongst that, there is this guy named David McKenzie, who on Twitter, he's one of these people who acted like he's just an outside observer. He's just, you know, I believe he's maybe a Duke alum, but in that Raleigh, North Carolina area there, but just talking all this mess about, you know, all the tropes about Florida State. They're just greedy. They signed a deal. They've got no chance. It's ironclad. Just saying absolutely ridiculous things. He's blocked like every Florida State fan, lawyer, anybody with any sense. It doesn't matter really how you talk to him. He's just that guy. Jen's blocked. I'm not sure if I'm blocked or not. I really didn't give him the time of day, but his name's David McKenzie, experienced intellectual property litigator, trial and appellate attorney, constitutional lawyer. It says serving people in that area there. There was an order that came down. There was a, what is the word? A restraining order filed against the North Carolina Board of Trustees or the Board of Regents. I don't know if I'm saying that wrong, but hopefully I'm saying that right. The Board of Trustees for all the stuff they were talking about, the issues they were talking about, kind of against the ACC. Their displeasure with how Bubba Cunningham was going forward with these different things. So yeah, it's just wow. Like it really makes you wonder what the hell is going on. Like Jen said, like a telenovela. And I know Jesse's he lives up there closer to that area, but he's a Florida State guy. He's not into this drama. It's not like he's some inside source up there. But
yeah,
what do you think of all this stuff, man? What's going on?
Well, you know, the thing I think what's interesting with North Carolina is, you know, you originally had Cunningham come out, about a year or so ago and really sided with the ACC and, you know, Florida State was the problem child and all that. But the problem is like, and I mean, for what it's worth, he's a respected athletic director. I mean, I'm not saying he's not good at his job, but I mean, you also look like we were talking about before the show. They just projected that they're going to be operating at $100 million deficit over the next decade. Next year is, I think, was $17 million or something like that in the negative. And the thing is, the board of trustees, at the end of the day, man, like who are you here for? Are you for the ACC or are you for the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill? And so it's a dereliction of duty for you not to do what's in the best interest of your school. And, like we talked about, if you go to that revenue sharing model where it's going to cost you, we were looking somewhere in what, 30 million a year or something like
30
that.
million a team.
Like that you're going to have to pay, and you're already $20 to $30 million behind in the revenue gap. You're going to have to find that money somewhere, and it's not going to come from the ACC. They're not. I mean, yeah, the performance-based initiative things might bridge the gap if you're good, but it's not going to be enough. I mean, it's going to be a Band-Aid on where you need a tourniquet. And so I think they're going to have to look for other options for what's best for North Carolina. And I think, if they're opening an investigation, they're looking into things, and I mean, his days might be numbered, because I think if it's one of those where, like, if you get in the way, they're going to have to remove you because they know that this is not sustainable. And I don't think it's that they want to kill the ACC. Like if they could somehow magically, and I was trying to do some reading on this before we jumped on the show, like if there was a way in that 2025 look-in that they could fix something, you know what I mean, renegotiate anything to make this work, it's worth looking into. But I think the problem is it's just you're falling farther behind while the money you need is growing even more and more. And I mean, who cares about the ACC, man? It's like a band of brothers or whatever, but you're not even brothers. No one's looking out for each other. So you have to do what's best for North Carolina and not the ACC. And I think that's just what Florida State and Clemson are doing. And they were the bad guy for doing it early on. And now everybody realizes, like, hey, man, there's probably something to this.
Facts. And you hit on some major points. You and Jim both talked about it, about that giant $30 million gap. Well, TJ Altimore posted, he's always posting these different graphics when it has to do with money on athletics, research, academics, all those different things. And when you look at the spending for 2023, North Carolina in that giant gap, well, they're not in that giant gap because they're outspending everybody.
No.
Sure, they're outside of the top 5, or they're right there at number 5. Let's go through the list. Florida State is at number 1. They spent the most money of anybody in the ACC on football at $76.5 million. And just to give you an idea of where that ranks nationally, that's second in the entire nation behind only Alabama, and would be second in the SEC. Auburn comes in second in the SEC at $71 million. But let's not get out of hand. Let's scroll over to Miami. They're the second richest, or not the second richest. It doesn't have anything to do with your total money, because they spent the second most amount of money in the ACC last year at $74.2 million. They also would have been second in the SEC. Right behind them would be Notre Dame. I don't really, count them, but Notre Dame is at $71.9 million. But of course, Notre Dame gets paid a shit ton more than Florida State. Alabama gets paid, a shit ton more than Florida State. And then you drop off a big time, a good $14 million to get down to Clemson, who spent $57.8 million. And you can see Clemson, that big difference there, probably like solely the portal. I'd have to guess there. They're not spending money there on the portal. Either that, or it could be something to do with upgrading facilities. But nonetheless, it drops off again considerably down to Pittsburgh. And then you hit North Carolina at $44.5 million. So yeah, they're not anywhere near competing even in the top 3 of the ACC in this giant gap. And there's also, they spent $30 million less than Florida State, than Clemson, than all these other teams, Miami. So it really goes to show these top teams in the ACC, in order to compete at the national level, when you look at Florida State, Clemson, Notre Dame, Miami, the 4 teams that are legitimately, whether we think they're doing a good job or not, the teams that are actually going to compete at a national level, the only way to do it is to spend as much money as Alabama to spend. And that's what they're having to do. So Florida State has a plan. They're not going to keep doing this. They're not going to keep, going into a deficit and losing money by being in the ACC. We've seen the $572 million project Osceola plan they have, which they've already unlocked 300 some odd million dollars of that. There's still 180 something, I believe, around in that ballpark, $1 million still left around that people are talking about. Could it be for an exit fee? Could it be for this? Could it be for that? We will see. But yeah, I mean, it just goes to show how exponential
Sorry.
The,
My kids were making me. Sorry.
yeah, the issues are.
No, I agree. And I was going to say, I'm not sure where exactly he got his numbers from. So I'm not going to say, that they're right or wrong. They're probably better than mine. But it's funny that we actually talked about that on our episode that we dropped today about like, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Clemson fan, and we were kind of talking about, where we think we'll end up in the long-term picture. And, he had said that he kind of felt a little bit bad for some of the teams that were going to get left behind. And I was like, man, not in any way, shape, or form, because when you look at the ACC as a whole, they have the even revenue distribution, and even they never had the performance-based model before. So that means everybody got the same piece of the pie. They got the same checkbook that we had to spend on football, and they chose not to spend that. Now, the numbers that I had, it came from the Knight Newhouse project. So if the numbers are wrong, go yell at them. It's just where I got it from. But from what I looked at from the football spending, and they will show you that what they spent on just football. And from 2018 to 2023, Clemson average, or Florida State was number 1 in the ACC. Now, of course, there's some private universities that you can't get the numbers on. I think there's about 8 of them that they had numbers on. Florida State, they had them at 53.1 million, Clemson at 52.6 million. But the ACC average was only 30.1 million. UNC clocked in at 29.1. Louisville, who's, one of the better teams in the ACC, only at 32.1 million. Georgia Tech was all the way down at 26.1 million. So you didn't put the same commitment forward that Florida State and Clemson did. So it's like, I can't feel bad for you if you get left behind when you had the same opportunities that we did and you chose not to do the same thing. You knew football was the revenue driver. Everybody's known that. And that's where you saw the SEC lay the blueprint. The SEC wasn't always what it was. It's the SEC network, the influx of money, and the focusing on football that built that conference up. And, they said in the back, I remember it was a couple of years ago, I think when Phillips first came on. And I mean, look, I got no hard feelings against Phillips. I mean, I don't care for him. I think he's not really done the job that he's been brought in to do. But, I made the equation earlier that Phillips is kind of like getting promoted to the captain of the Titanic after you already hit the iceberg. You're just like, yeah, yay, but you're also on a sinking ship. And so I think it's like he told them to focus on football. And I mean, if they didn't, then I'm sorry if you get left behind, but you made that choice.
Yeah, there's no doubt whatsoever. Unfortunately, I believe he's doing exactly what he was hired to do. And that's the problem with this damn conference. I think he was just hired to be kind of take the beatings from whoever the person is.
Yeah.
That's actually pulling the levers. He's just a punching bag, but not one with power like one in Roger Goodell. But you're absolutely right. When you look at the bottom of the conference, Syracuse, 26.8 million they spent last year. Virginia, 29 million. NC State, 31. SMU, 30. Stanford, 33. Louisville, 33. Georgia Tech, 33. It's really 2 different conferences. And you have this in a lot of different areas. Even the SEC, the Big Ten, the bottom spends like a lot less. But they are in a different situation. Nobody there is upset with the money they get. And if you've been paying attention, there's been some articles actually talking about what we've talked about a lot about on the show. If you're going to say, okay, well, the SEC and the Big Ten, they get 3 automatic qualifiers. They get 2 byes instead of 1. And the ACC, the Big 12, we all split 2. And here's how if you're going to admit that, and part of the reason that Clemson went ahead and pulled the trigger, part of the reason you're hearing UNC pull the trigger is because, yeah, the ACC laid down and put it in print that we're a lesser conference. We are no longer competing whatsoever to be elite, to be at the top. So once you do that, once you say, okay, the college football playoff has given the SEC and the Big Ten special privileges, you've got to ask, well, then what the hell does Vanderbilt get to be in there for? Well, why does Indiana get to be in there for? You got to really think about, relegation and dropping some of these teams out, because it's just, it's just not fair. And I seen somebody suggesting that as if everybody was just going to be like, no, that's terrible. How dare you? I think the response they got, everybody was like, yep, seems about right. If you want to be a football school in the SEC and spend $27 million, I'm sorry, it just don't compute.
Yeah.
You're pocketing $70 million a year. It's not an extreme in the ACC, but just think about that. Florida State's fighting for its life. Clemson, Miami, these schools, raising all this money to compete and have to spend as much as anybody in the nation. And meanwhile, you've got 10 schools at the bottom spending $33 million or less. and pocketing $7 million off the football deal that you're breaking your fucking back to get.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that when you talk about the bottom tier of the SEC, it's funny when you go back and look at like some TV metrics and numbers. I mean, it's still like the mid tier is better than the second. Like you have Florida State and Clemson as far as media rights or TV revenue and stuff like that. Viewers in the ACC, and then it's like a long ride down, and then you can find the rest of the conference. Most of the ACC or the SEC and the Big Ten, they fall in that gap between the number 2 and the number 3. So it's like, where is the disconnect between the middle? Like, how come NC State, who is, I mean, they're never good. They only have one 10-win season in the history of their program, which is the most mind-boggling stat I can think of. But they're consistently decent. So where is the support? And that's, I think a lot of that has to do with the promotion of the ACC. And that was the topic that came up in Amelia Island, was the perception of the conference as a whole. And it's like, you've just done a poor job rolling out the ACC network. You've done a poor job with your leadership. You've done a poor job. As much as I love Eric McLean and EJ Manuel and the guys that cover the ACC, you've done a poor job promoting yourself as a product.
That's too little too late. I love EJ Manuel. I love Eric McLean, but the show didn't even get set up till 4 or 5 years after. I don't know. It looks like Jen's got something. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I don't have anything. I'm just saying, hey, bring EJ over to Fox. It'll be fine. It's all good. It's all good. Like, EJ is great. He's going to be just fine. And actually, I saw him hold his own against Stephen A. on First Take a couple times. He'll be just fine. He's going to be great. I'm not worried about EJ. That is a successful man. He dresses well. So I know, like, come on, guys. Like, EJ's going to be just fine. The ACC network is going to continue to fall down that hole that they're in. And I hate it for them because somebody remind me the girl's name on there, because I really like her. She's not one of those. I'm not trying to be mean, guys, to girls who talk sports, but
isn't it Kelly Gramlich, I think?
Yeah. I do like her a lot. She doesn't do, when you have a lot of these women on ESPN, when they're talking about football, they do ums. And I know it's because they're nervous, but you just get a ton of ums. And I'm bad about it too, but I'm not being paid millions of dollars on ESPN. So, I love her. I think she's so good. She's going to, look, even if it implodes, I would never wish for anybody's job, minus a few. I mean, nobody's perfect, but I think they'll be fine. The ACC network will be fine. It won't be watched, but it will be fine. And those people will find really good jobs.
They can cover lacrosse. I mean, they got things to be busy with.
What do you think they do on Saturdays right now?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just look at the fact that
nobody's
the
watching that.
Like, how long did it take the ACC network, if it even still is available, with Comcast in Florida? I mean, what a joke. It's just, again, man, they've made their own mess, and now they're mad. They're mad that someone's making them lay in it.
So I've got a couple of texting questions, and I'm gonna try to get there, but I'll do it naturally. There's one thing I want to bring up and address, because I keep seeing people bring it up and bring it up and bring it up. Media people, but I haven't seen the first media person reporting it this way. But I just want to address to clear it with our people, if any of those people are watching, if anybody has the idea that's how we're reporting it. But the question that keeps getting asked is, is Florida State gonna put in their, are they gonna let the ACC know they're leaving? Are they gonna withdraw from the ACC before they're done with the settlement? Are they gonna be able to leave and go to the Big Ten before this thing's done? We have from the very get-go here said absolutely not. We have said a ton that there is a chance it gets done before the August 15th date. But if there's any chance for the Florida State to exit, announce their exit from the ACC by that August 15th date, it would be because there was some settlement that was reached. Something happened. Something major happened, whether the Clemson case ended and that forced negotiations, whatever the case may be. The one thing we talked about in our predictions, that if we could get to discovery, maybe that could provide the leverage to get us there, to make them, sit down. Jen says I have some statics. Let me hop back in.
Well, and I think he's right, because I mean, you still have, like, ESPN is still the big brother of the situation. They can still make things happen. They can still, I'm sure if they wanted to facilitate a deal to keep from going to Discovery, they could probably make that happen. You know, I mean, they could certainly make a deal if they had to avoid Discovery. But I'm with you, man. I don't think Florida State, like, this is a legal thing, man. I like watching some crime stuff. You know, I watched the first 48, and you know, I mean, it takes so long for anything in the legal process to happen. Of course, they're trying to speed it along, but I mean, this is probably, like you said, they're not going to put anything in before they know what's going to happen. I mean, there's still a chance. I mean, I hate to be that guy, but like, there's still a chance this doesn't happen, and you are stuck. You know, and I think it's eventually delaying the inevitable, because at 2036, God knows if you're not like Division II by then, from the revenue gap, I mean, everybody's going to bolt for the door as soon as they get a chance without having to pay that big fee. So, you know, but a lot of it has to do with that 2025 look in and see what happens there. I mean, you could dissolve the whole thing. There's been some talks about, you remember last year when they had the Magnificent Seven or whatever. I think they need like 8 to 10 teams now, but they could still basically break off and reform a new ACC and just kind of get rid of the Boston College and the Wake Forest. And it's just basically, you're bringing in the same draw. You're just not splitting it as many ways. And so you could kind of cut them out. You could actually drop down, you know, they have to remain above 15 teams right now. But if you renegotiate the deal, hey, this is a new 10-team ACC. We'll take our money. We'll split it less ways and we'll be fine. You know, I mean, it's just, you got to weigh all your options. But like you said, man, Florida State doesn't need to jump into anything if you feel good about where you're at, why waste, you know, why bother?
Well, yeah, like what I was trying to get at before my thing started staticking up is, like he just alluded to, there was a time at the beginning we hoped maybe this litigation could go fast, it could get through and get done. That's not going to happen. This is going to take forever. For this actual case to get settled through the courts, it's going to take us through all the dates. There are several dates. June 30th. That is the deadline for the ACC to dismantle, for 8 teams to get together and to say, okay, we're all leaving together, and that's it. The conference ends, the grant of rights ends, all that. That's June 30th. The next date to know is August 15th of this year. Florida State has until August 15th to say, hey, guys, we're leaving, we're out, we're going to play 2024, and that's it. We're headed to another conference in 2025. The third option is to make it to February of 2025, and then the look in that these guys are talking about. If ESPN decides, and it's a unilateral, it's an ESPN decision, nobody has any influence on it whatsoever. It's 100% up to them. If they decide they do not want to extend it, then boom, that's it. It ends. Now, there's a bit of an argument in there in the case, ACC arguing that yes, it does. The rest of the schools, Clemson, Florida State, arguing no, it doesn't. But I will clean this all up. I'll get to my point here. I disagree with Jesse to a certain tiny extent. I think there is 0% that Florida State is in the ACC through 2036. I think there is a very good chance, not a very good chance. I think there is a small chance that Florida State is in the ACC through 2027. That is nailed into place. There's no doing away with that. I think the 27, whether it's 27, 28, you know, through 36, or it doesn't actually start until 28. That final 9 years, the extra part, I think if it came down to it, Florida State would just pay that off. Whatever it came down to be, if they had to stay in it till 27, and that's what they ended up paying for, that would be it. But again, guys, I'm not saying that will happen. That's a worst case scenario, in my opinion. But you know, there is a world, and there are people that think, you know, there's like literally half the lawyers you talk to see it one way, and half see it the other way when it comes to whether it cuts off in 27 or if there's actually grounds to extend it to 2036. And that's why it's so fun to talk about it and go back and forth.
No, I agree with you, man. I don't think Florida State's going to be in here till 2036. I think it really, at the end of the day, it's a math equation. You know, when the numbers are feasible for them to leave, they're going to leave, you know, and that may not be 2036. It may, you know, let's just say the $550 million sticks to the wall, and you're like, all right, well, I mean, that sucks, but it's going to chip away. You know what I mean? It's like paying on a loan. It's going to chip away eventually. And eventually you're going to look and go, okay, I mean, no one's really got that cash sitting around. You're going to have to finance that debt somehow. And then, so if you say, okay, well, our payment on that loan is $20 million a year, and we're going to make 30, 40 million a year more in this other conference. Bye. That's all we need. Yeah. We'll just finance the debt. We'll take a bigger paycheck and we'll be out of here. But
and not to stop you, but that's the question I got that I was trying to get to, and you hit it perfectly. So that's the question I got. If you want to continue with it. How much do you think Florida State pays? And that was his question. Are they going to be able to spread this thing out where it's a payment plan? So you were going right down the perfect line with that.
Well, yeah,
For
man.
Joel, shout out
I
to
mean,
Joel.
you know, and of course, Joel, I think when you look at companies, you know, if you look at like any kind of investing or stocks or things like that, Apple's the worlds and the Microsofts, I mean, they carry a ton of debt. And I mean, you're looking at North Carolina financing or finalizing their budget at $100 million deficit. They didn't say like, okay, well, we're going to stop playing sports and let the money catch up, or we're going to cut these. They're still going ahead with it. And so I think that I don't know the number, you know, I don't know how, like, it all depends, you know, on the interest rate they get on it. If they go private equity, if someone's, you know, what they look to get back on their investment in FSU football. You know, there's also been some things with renaming the stadium and renaming the Tucker Center that could generate some additional revenues. So there's a lot of things that go into that. But again, I think it also depends on if you get a full share into these conferences, if you get a partial share. Because again, like, I mean, if you're even at a $1 million $1, shit. I mean, let's be honest. If you can join the SEC, finance your payout to get out of the ACC, and you're making $1 extra, the extra CFP spots, that's enough reason to jump. The recruiting advantages, the revenue that's going to grow in the future. Where, I mean, I'm pretty confident we all would agree that the SEC and the Big Ten they're only going to continue to grow. The money's going to get more in those conferences. The ACC, there's just no way it's not going to grow, not substantially. It's only going to shrink. And I will say one thing, and I'll kick it to you on this. The point that I was going to make a second ago is I think 2025 is going to be really interesting from ESPN's perspective, because if you were going to sign this contract, wouldn't you want to know if you were going to have Florida State, your two biggest assets, in that deal? And so it's like, you know, if you're like, okay, well, these guys got a really good shot at getting out, there's no way in hell I'm touching that contract. But if you're like, okay, well, we got them, you know what I mean? Then it's like you might want to pick that up. But I don't think ESPN is going to sign without knowing the assets that they're acquiring in that contract.
Yeah, you led me right exactly where I was going. Spear Addicts Media says, just wait until the second week of June. And that's what I was getting into, what I was saying earlier. ESPN is no dummy. They realize what I said earlier, that regardless if Florida State gets stuck here through 2027, they are gone. There's no way in hell they say, okay, yeah, we're going to pay up and extend this thing through 2036. There's just no way. I think the kind of thing, maybe it's what Jim Phillips was really hired for. Maybe it's why ESPN has waited this long to go out. They're just holding up, like, look, the ACC, if there's somehow you can figure out to get Notre Dame in this thing, to lock Florida State, Clemson up, just maybe, maybe there's a wing and a prayer. But no, it's the writing's on the wall. It's all been done and said for. And the question is, and the thing, again, I brought up that question people are asking as if we were, not us, whoever's reporting it that way. Nobody's reporting that FSU can just do what they want. Doesn't matter about the lawsuit. They can just leave whatever they want. That isn't what we're saying. But when you talk about leverage, people want to say, oh, you act like you say there's a deal with Fox. Let me see the email. Let me see the copy of the contract. There doesn't have to be a contract. It doesn't have to be it. If you're the #1 draft pick coming out of high school or coming out of, Florida State or whatever the case may be, you know that whoever has the first draft pick is going to pick you up. You don't have to have some kind of deal with the Dallas Mavericks. They got the first pick in the draft. And you're whoever, say the Cleveland Cavaliers. You didn't need a contract with LeBron James. You didn't need some kind of conspiracy before he left high school. No, you got the first round pick, and he's the most talented team or player in the country. So when just as soon as Florida State hits the free agent market, boom, they are the hottest entity on the free agent market that has ever hit the free agent market in college football. It's an insane. Oh my gosh, we haven't seen anything like this since the 80s, the 90s. What? Like, we've seen Oregons, we've seen some of these newcomers, we've seen old bloods who suck now, like a Texas A&M. Florida State, a team who is a new blood, won 3 national championships in the last couple of decades. They're changing conferences, and they've got a chance to go to the Big Ten. Just look at the value of what it's worth. To the Big Ten, what is FSU worth? To the SEC, what is FSU worth? Who else are they going to go? You think they're going to go Sun Belt? No, there's 2 options, right. And it's going to be the Fox, because you're worth 100x to Fox than you are to anybody else. So it just is what it is. Sorry to go on that rant, but yeah, there is no paper trail. There is no handshake deal. There is no, 100%. Nobody's reported that. It's just common sense. And I guarantee you conversations have been had. Trips have been made. We've seen Michael Alford all of a sudden in Chicago for booster events and things like that, making snide comments. Take it for what you will. Believe me or not, I don't care. We've been reporting on this shit forever, talking on it on end. Chris Frazier, if you haven't, if you're not up to date on Spear Addicts, watch their show last night with the different things they talked about. If you're to believe, if you listen to what Chris and them reported on, holy shit, everybody's done. Georgia Tech's done. All these other schools are sick and tired because, again, Florida
I
State
even
the
heard
ball.
Duke
We're
was
the
complaining.
badasses. If you're not going to stand up for us, why the fuck are you going to stand up for anybody else? If Florida State can't get in 16 conference championships, 17 conference championships, like over half in the time you've been in the league, they can't get in the playoff. What's NC State going to do when they got one loss or something? Or fuck, sorry guys, I'll shut up for a little bit.
No, I was gonna say I even heard Duke was complaining. Like when Duke is complaining, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
That's wild to me. I even heard Wake Forest had like a couple like kind of testy questions. I was like, that's bold for them, but okay. I mean, cool.
Yeah.
Get yourselves in a tizzy, guys. Get your golden black selves in a tizzy. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, join the fight, but you also don't have a seat at the table, so you better watch what you say a little bit there. But I think it's interesting, man, because you bring up a good point too. Like we talk about the revenue, we talk about TV money and all that stuff, but look at the success on the field. Literally nobody in this conference has ever done anything. And you want to bring up Miami's history that was not in the ACC. And so like you look at the success on the field, it's only been two brands. I mean, nobody has ever really done anything before or not named Florida State and Clemson. So, I mean, you got to know that once those two make it out, like you said, when you're trying to argue for a CFP spot, and they also have the look-in thing with the new CFP contract, where if there is more realignment, then they can revisit how many spots you get to. They could take the ACC down, and they could drop another spot from them. So I think it's the ACC, like they said out of the meetings, they have zero incentive to settle. Well, no kidding, because you're fighting for your life. Because again, like we've said before, when one team hits the door, when they are allowed to leave, and if it's at an affordable price, I mean, what's stopping the floodgates from opening? And I mean, who is going to want just kind of a bare bones leftover ACC of? I mean, who the hell is going to tune in to watch Wake Forest and Boston College if that's like the best you got? That's not attractive. Not for TV. I mean, we know that. We have numbers to back that up. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's – and I also think with people saying where's Florida State going to land, Big Ten, SEC, all that stuff, you also have to think about, like, college football has been around for a really long time. And as shitty as the path is that we're on right now, it's not going anywhere. So there's only so many brands. There's not going to be a new school to pop up tomorrow that they're going to want to go after. So, like, if you can get Florida State and Clemson out there, it's like one of the last big fish in the pond. Yeah. Why would you not grab them now? Because a lot of people think like in the next 5 or 10 years, you could be thinking 30, 40, 50 years down the road. That's who you want. And you want to get them before someone else because it's probably going to be easier to get them now than it will later. And so, if you go to super conferences or whatever, I think, man, you just got to think long-term picture. And you're always as a conference is a business, really. That's what it is. It's an arrangement, it's like a shell company or whatever, where it just kind of holds assets for everybody else and distributes money. Back to kind of stocks or whatever, like some oil companies or whatnot. But anyway, they basically just divvy out profits and keep a little bit for themselves. And so you're always trying to grow your revenue. You're always trying to get your business to be bigger. And this is how you do it. And like you said, man, what are you going to wait for them to go somewhere else? And then all of a sudden you got to pick from App State, Georgia Southern, or programs like that. It's just, man, this is the biggest chance, the best chance you got to get one of those. And I don't think they're going to go through this without knowing they have somewhere to go. Like you said, you can't say that officially, but I mean, let's be honest. You don't think that there hasn't been some meeting somewhere where someone's, all right, look, if you figure it out, I got you, but I don't think they're going to invest millions in legal fees without that. I just don't.
Facts. I agree. And, we've been back and forth on this, how much we think this will cost, the timetable, predictions of when we'll be here, when we'll be there. The one thing we do know for sure, because the ACC has admitted it in open court, just to be clear, the exit fee, if Florida State were to announce his exit, would be somewhere around 130 to 140 million dollars. That's a lump sum, just a slap on the wrist. Boom! This is your fee, is your ticket for leaving the conference. After that, it would be a year by year, whatever they come up with. There is no actual term actually spelled out as of now. Florida State has estimates. The ACC has put forth some sort of estimates, but it could go up anywhere to $500 million if you go all the way to 2036. We're not quite sure. But when we talk about how much the exit fee is going to be, how much they're going to pay, I've been predicting kind of this whole time it would be somewhere around $200 million. And that factored in for me, the exit fee of 140 million and approximately $30 million a year for 26 and 27, should they leave in 25. But we'll see. Again, that's just a prediction. It's a thing we've heard and talked about. As this thing's moved forward, as the case has got drawn out and drawn out, the longer the thing gets drawn out, the farther we are from discovery. In my opinion, that helps the ACC. So that's hurt my idea of how much Florida State's going to pay. But Spear Addicts, Chris Rager over there, he's been like steadfast. He thinks Florida State could even possibly get paid when all the shit comes down, when all the stuff's through hitting the fan and the truth comes out. He really truly believes that, you know, it's going to be, they're going to be paying us to go away, stuff like that. So I love that. I hope he's 100% right. And the shit I'm hearing coming back from the ACC meetings, whatever you want to call it, seeing what's going on with UNC, that the office, obviously there's a power struggle. There's some people there that want to get the hell out, file suit right now, and there's some, you know, that are still on the good old boy system. Seeing all that go down, seeing Clemson's beautiful suit, they're pushing through. Yeah, it would be nice. June 30th is a date we'll have to look at, because all it takes is 8. And if those 8, like you know, like Jesse was saying a minute ago, if they get together and they decide, it's all over right then. You throw all the shit we've been talking about, it all goes out. So that's the next date up, and that's about all I've got on that. If there's anybody else, I'll continue, but we're at 42 minutes already. This has been amazing. Thank you again so much for joining us, Jesse. If you're not already subscribed, it's at Plant the Spear right here on YouTube, at Plant the Spear 1 on X, Plant the Spear on Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. But I'm gonna go ahead and throw the banner up here for people if they want to get their questions in.
I do think, I will say, you know, because Clemson added in, they want damages too now. So it's like, you know, hey, if we're gonna go out of the club, we're gonna make our way out the club, and we're gonna take your girl with us on the way out the door. So like, you know, they're gonna grab a bottle off the shelf. You know, they're gonna cause a problem on the way out. So they want some money, and I think, you know, if you see that happen, Florida State could surely be there. But the last thing I will say on that is, I was reading a report earlier where it's like a lot of the schools are pretty pissed that Clemson had to file a lawsuit just to find out their options. You know, because Clemson has always approached this as like, look, we're not saying that we want to leave. We just want to know what it would take to get out. We want to know what it would take to shop our media rights and possibly capitalize on our brand value somewhere else. And like, schools are like, man, you really got to do all this just to find out. And I think that's caused a little bit of a stir between schools too. And, you know, I mean, it's just, I think right now everybody's just kind of sitting on their hands, other than maybe UNC, because they sense the urgency, and they're just waiting to see how it plays out with these 3 schools, or 2, potentially 3 schools. And, you know, I think if 1 or 2 hit the door, it's going to be a house of cards eventually.
Boom. Jen Knoll 2013, our amazing co-host, gifted 5 memberships. So 5 lucky people out there are now members of the Renegade Rundown, the Renegade Report. As we get here and we get closer and closer to recruiting and for business to really start to pump up, we're going to have all kinds of material. The closer and closer we get to the season, guys, I promise you there's going to be all kinds of fun stuff. We're going to have members only episodes, chats between, you know, former players and stuff that come on as guests. You're going to get to talk to them, all kinds of fun stuff. So we appreciate you hanging through the slow time, through the off season. Keep the conversation going. Keep showing up to hang out with us all the time. You spoke about Clemson actually putting in their suit. You know, they're filing for damages. What do y'all think? Do y'all think that's more of just a Trojan horse, or, you know, whatever, just a facade to get the ACC to maybe drop, you know, to help with negotiations, maybe drop their exit fee or their, you know, whatever indentured servitude they think we owe them for 10 years after it's over? Or do you think Clemson legitimately thinks they're going to, you know, just actually get paid out of it?
I think it just ups the ante, really. I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot to it. I think it just maybe puts a little bit more pressure, like, to settle, to where if you lose, it's going to cost you more. And so I think it's just maybe a little bit of an incentive to be like, hey, let's get to the table, because if you lose this thing, not only do you lose both of your brands, you might have to come out of pocket too. So, and if you don't get the damages, but you still get out, that's what you wanted to begin with. So like, why not add it in? I mean, the ACC added it to Florida State's suit. So why not? And, if UNC does file suit, man, that's because, they're going to sue back. That's 6 lawsuits that you have to deal with at one time. And I mean, that's for the ACC, and they're going to be bleeding cash too. So, I mean, you have to think about how much money they're going to be willing to put on in the pot to fight this for years on end. If you have to start branching out and fighting on all these different fronts, man, that's going to get expensive for the ACC.
Without a doubt. Oh, what was that? Without a doubt. Encyclopedia hits the $3 super chat. Thank you guys so much for all the updates, man. Thank you for joining us, man. We appreciate you for being here. You're here for like every episode. But speaking of updates, we finally get the trailer for NCAA 2025. Our guy Roydell Williams on there hitting the spin move. What y'all think about that? Are y'all hyped?
Man.
Oh, I can't wait. It's the only video game I play. So
Yep.
I have to honestly tell you, like, I cannot play video games. I don't mind anybody who does. This is not a gamer shamer situation here. I just get car sick very easily. I get car sick very easily, but look, for NCAA football, look, I cannot wait to make my team. I can't wait to have it in my hand. This is like signing day used to be. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when like the old school games used to come out and you get so excited, you get your team ready, all the things, right? Like, I cannot wait. It's going to be so fun. I just hope I can remember all the damn little buttons. Because again, this is the only game I would play next to GoldenEye. And we're not going to go down that road because that was the GOAT.
Oh my gosh.
I don't care what anybody
Get
says.
started on that. I got a caller before we get down the GoldenEye rabbit hole, but let's get the caller and then we'll move right back to Jesse with NCAA 25. You're live with the Renegade Rundown.
All right, this is Nick.
Nick's not on the line. I thought I was talking to a girl that when I first answered the phone. You done passed the phone around or what?
Yeah, no, I've got beef with this stupid trailer. I think this would be good for roast material. Why is petting a rock more impressive than planting the spear? Why? Like, Clemson got 3 freaking like shout outs or whatever, and this stupid rock that is a freaking doorstop of an old coach is somehow more impressive than riding Renegade and Osceola out there with a flamethrower. Like, give me a break.
Facts, man. I agree with you 100% on that, Nick. Did you have anything else, or just wanted to roast those guys for only giving us 3 seconds of airtime?
Yeah, no, it was 3 seconds. No, I don't really have much else, but yeah, I appreciate y'all.
No, thank you, man. It's already cut you off there, Jesse. I swear, I'm the most awkward with these calls. I've got to get to where the call like shows up.
Yeah.
Maybe all I have to do is put a banner up that says "Boom, caller on the line." But GoldenEye, Jen brought up there at the last second. Holy shit! I mean that's
the GOAT, man.
It really is. Like, you can't make me think anything other than these POV games. That is GoldenEye that is the end all be all.
That's the OG that's the OG. I still have it. Like, I have it N64. Like, that's amazing. That's still the GOAT. But no, I'm with Nick. Like, I am 100% on his side. I was waiting for George to like give me the floor because, I mean, let's face it, it's cool. I'm glad we didn't get left out, but yeah, I kind of got a little bone to pick with the NCAA preview too. I mean, he brought up the petting the rock, and by all means, it's silly or whatever. Can we talk about that? They showed Boston College petting a friggin' wooden eagle, and you got like, yeah, for real. Because I ain't gonna lie. I was like, oh, look, there's oh shit, wrong team. So, but then they were like, because whatever. But they were petting the thing, and I'm like, man, come on, they had Wake Forest on the little motorcycle or whatever. I'm like, you literally left out one of the best traditions, the best tradition in college football, to pet a wooden eagle. And I saw somebody commented on a post I made about it that they, I guess they had counted. Clemson had like 5 different shots in there. And Florida State only had one. Florida, I know, had a couple. So, like, I was a little disappointed in the trailer. Nonetheless, I'm not going to let it steal the sunshine that the game is on the way back. I just looked it up. They have 1 million views in 9 hours. That game is about to go crazy. I know they're going to be happy that they brought it back. I'm excited. I'm telling you, man, like I have worn my 2013 copy out. It is like begging for a breather. Like, leave me alone, bro. I'm done with this. But man, I'm so excited. You know, I'm with Jen. Like, this is about the only video game that I play. I got like one other one that I play. That's pretty much. I don't even really play Madden like that. I'm all NCAA, so I can't wait. I'm gonna have, I'm funny about it though. Like, I like to use Florida State, but like in my
Well,
heart,
it can be bad luck. It can be bad luck.
well, see, that's the thing. Like,
Especially
I don't
to use the starters. Look, I fully believe in this. I'm
see.
sorry.
I can't in
sorry.
my heart bring Florida State to lose. So like, I'll pause
Yeah.
with 1 second left, and I will quit that shit in a heartbeat. So so I
Oh
don't
my
have a
God.
loss on my record. Like, if I have a dynasty with Florida State, I'm 1,000-0. But I usually, I'm like everybody else. I start with the, whatever team, New Mexico State or something like that, and you work your way up. But man, I'm so freaking excited about this. I know, like, there's going to be literally nobody at work on Friday, July 19th. Everybody's going to be calling out.
No.
It should be a national holiday. Like, I mean, come
It
on, what
really
are we doing
should,
here?
man. Chris is making fun of us for talking about the old games, man. Don't hate, bro. Them old games is where it's at, bro.
Look,
There's some of the old freaking Mario Kart double
and the
gas. That's the
golden
best
gun.
game of all time. Don't get me started on
It's
that.
the mines and the golden gun. The mines and
Yeah.
the golden
Oh,
gun
she's
can
back
shoot
on
anybody.
GoldenEye.
And the
Oh, yeah.
mine. Oh, look. You said the old games. I'm just going right back to it. GoldenEye was the best. I was an asshole. I would leave mines everywhere and then hide in a corner, and I still won all the time. All the time.
Oh, yeah. Proximity mines and remote mines. That game is way ahead of its time as we have another caller coming in. You are live on the Renegade Rundown. What can we do for you today? You got a question for us?
Yes, man, I'm just enjoying what y'all talking about, the NCAA. I can't wait for it to come out. Guess what? I still got it on my PlayStation 3. And guess what?
Yeah.
I'm about to give it to everybody. Go Noles. Guess what? The Death Star is here. Hate us all you want. Guess what? We just going to continue to do what we do, and it's dominate. And I just want to say, love the show, guys.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks
Thank
for calling in. We
you.
love you. Go Knowles, baby. It's all about the Knowles, and he's right, man. It's the Death Star's here. I can't wait to get here. I think, somehow in my excitement for the running game, that's been my big take. People already, they're underestimating our offensive line room, our running back room. I didn't want to get too excited about Roydell Williams too early. I was really high on him at the beginning, but then I did that depth chart. And I gave, Lawrence Toafili the benefit of the doubt as the starter, and that let Jalen Lucas start at the tailback position. But look, if I'm being real, and it was the most common note, the highest ceiling of this team will be Roydell Williams at running back and Lawrence Toafili at tailback. And the more I see, the fact that they come to Tallahassee to film and do all the different things, come up, with the ideas for the game, and it's Roydell Williams that they feature on the game. It's all these different things in the confidence. If you go back and look when he first committed, kind of how we talked about the promises that were made, and what, the kind of assertiveness and his, wanting to come be a part of this offense. Roydell Williams, Toafili with DJU at quarterback and this offensive line, they're not going to be able to stop it. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. It's going to be a totally different thing than we've seen.
Yep.
It's not going to be pulling games out of the hat and surprising people. It's going to be just some malicious beatdowns week in and week out. And I really cannot wait for it to get here, guys. It's going to be so much fun. We're so close too. What,
I know.
98 days, 99 days?
Under 100 days, man. But I echo you on the run game. I think it's going to be a huge part of this offense this year. I think it's where they're going to lean on. I think you're going to use that to open up what DJ's good at with the deep ball. I'm high on Roydell Williams. I just went back and watched some of his film and just seeing the combination of power and patience that he has. It makes me excited. There was a clip that I had cut up, and one of them was against LSU, and you can see it's a short on our page. It's talking about Roydell Williams if you want to check it out. But there's one clip in there where they show him from LSU, and it's one of those cameras from the backside where they show into the end zone, and you can see him set up. It's almost like Le'Veon Bell. You know what I mean? That real patient style runner where he will stop in the hole, wait for it to set up, and then there's also a clip in there, I think it was maybe Chattanooga, so just keep that in mind. There's 8 dudes around him, and he's just boop, pops out the other side and goes for a touchdown. It's the power, it's the patience. I think he's going to be a really big part of this offense because he kind of gives you that big bruiser back. But I'm also big, on Toafili, and And I talked to somebody, I was on another show a couple weeks ago, and they said that they had talked with somebody from Indiana, and the name Jalen Lucas came up even on their show. And they said that like he felt like Indiana grossly misused who Jalen was, and that he is going to be an absolute game changer, and they can't wait. And you know, Mike Norvell is really, really good about putting you in a position to do what you're good at and getting you the ball in space if that's what you're good at. And man, I think he is really going to be an X factor for this team this year. I think he's a really underrated piece. But man, I think it all starts up front. And you look at the comments that Mike Norvell made in Amelia Island about Darius Washington potentially, you know, working his way into an All-American left tackle. I think that's a big vote of confidence for a guy who came back as a first-team All-ACC selection last year as an offensive tackle. So I think if you can, man, it's just been a while since we've had a really good, consistent left tackle. If you get them, you have bigger, more athletic guards this year, and Ferguson and Leonard. I think that was a problem last year. They kind of couldn't get to the hole fast enough. And then you add the stable of running backs. I think you'll see a lot more two-back sets, like kind of old school Mike Norvell offense. And then, of course, DJU. I mean, you're not scared to run him. He ran, I think, 111 times at Clemson his last year there. I don't think they're going to run him 100 times. They're going to run him more than they ran Jordan Travis. And so I think, man, I think you're going to see that 2022 running for 200 yards in like 8 or 9 games type of offense this year. And I think it's going to be really exciting. And then that'll open up the deep shots for DJ to do what he's good at.
Without a doubt. I really can't. There's this kind of notion out there that Florida State Mike Norvell has just hit the lottery in the portal, hitting on these guys. There's a hit rate that's sustainable. Like, to a certain degree, okay, you know, maybe you're right. But it's not like it just falls off a map. Maybe just instead of you get a first rounder in Jared Verse, you're going to have a second rounder at D end, and your D tackle is going to be a third rounder or a second rounder. This notion that he's just got all lucky. No, I think what you said about Jalen Lucas is 100% true. And I think you can say it about everybody he brings in. Earl Little Jr. is just like the absolute perfect slot guy, and Pat Surtain's defense. Like, there's all these different things. And I just really slept on. Everybody's just looking at what we lost. And yeah, there's the big, shiny 10, 13 players we lost to the NFL. But outside of that, everybody else we lost was a net gain. The person that left was replaced by somebody with a higher floor in some places and a higher ceiling. You get like guys like Omarion Cooper back as the walk-on, all these different things. And some people have addressed it. You know, I've heard people talk about it, whether it's Pate or Perkel, like, look, the people around Tallahassee think it's the most talented team they've ever had. Well, it is. You know, it just is. We brought in as many blue chips in this recruiting cycle as we had on the entire roster. So it's just real exciting. And the thing about it is people want to make like, oh, it's all young. Y'all are 80th in returning in production. And yeah, sure, we're 80th in returning production, but that's still almost 60%. And unlike Clemson, we're not replacing these people with, you know, babies. We're not replacing them with true freshmen or even true sophomores that haven't hit the field. Roydell Williams was like a legit. He was a dude at Bama, was moving into position. He was going to be even more of a dude. Like, he was that guy.
Yep.
Earl Little doesn't have a ton of experience. That's fair. But Cam Riley comes in as a senior and somebody that can be a calming presence on that defense. We've missed on 2 defensive line the entire time. Really, if you want to call it even a miss with Jared Jackson and Gilbert Edmond, or those misses, whatever, those are technically misses. But outside of that, you've got 8, 10 guys into the NFL. So you bring in 4 this year, you're telling me all 4 are going to bust? No.
Yeah.
If it dropped off a cliff, 2 of them would still be NFL top 100 picks out of the 4. So sorry.
Right. No, man, I think, like, man, here's the thing. I don't even really count Gilbert Edmond as a miss. And the reason I say that is because he wasn't brought in to be Jared Verse. He was brought in to fill a role, and he filled that role. He played in a lot of games. Was he great? No. Was he okay in his role? Yeah. And to me, that's okay. Like, not everybody, like you said, not everybody's going to be a first-round pick. But if you come in, I hate when people judge. And I know we just kind of touted our cap with the NFL draft, but I hate when people are like, "Oh, it's all about what they do in the NFL." Nah, man. Like, if you come in and you're Sean McGuire didn't steal the headlines, but he filled his role, and he saved our season against Clemson when he had to. He filled a role, so that's not a miss. And you look at most of the guys they missed on, the Jacksonville State DB back in the day, Malik Feaster, I think his name was, or something like that. Marcus Cushney, that was a miss. But that's back when you had to just get bodies, man. You got to get somebody in the boat. Now that you have a chance to pick and choose, man, I think the hit rate, I think we calculated it on our show the other couple episodes back where it was like, we judge it as filling the role, like we talked about. If you filled the role you were brought in to do, then I count that as at least a hit. And it was like 92%.
Yeah, it's insane.
And the other thing that I'll touch on about that is like, God, this pisses me off more than anything else. The misnomer that like, we just plug and play everybody. And there's no development that happens in Tallahassee, which is a load of crap, man. I mean, not every transfer that comes in is a ready-made NFL draft pick. Johnny Wilson, almost no production. Didn't think he was going to get touched in the portal. Trey Benson calls up Mike Norvell after he gets drafted, said, hey, man, thanks for taking a chance on me in the portal. These guys were brought in and developed. Sure, you had a year of development in a college strength and conditioning system, but you weren't ready to go. They weren't NFL draft picks. They weren't all ACC caliber players. That development happened at Florida State. Jordan Travis, perfect example of that. So you're able to bring in these guys and develop them. But man, you're going to start to see the high school talent catch up too. I think that's the thing that we've kind of been missing. Everybody like shits on the high school talent that we have. You also got to understand, man, we started from like way down here and those guys were young. They are just now old enough to really start getting on the field. Just because we're not Miami, man. We're not claiming trophies for playing the most freshmen while we finish 7-6. Like shit, that doesn't mean anything. You know, you put who's best on the field. It's not about we played more freshmen, but we lost more games. Well, congratulations. So they got a veteran team. I think they're going to be really good this year. Like you said, I think it's the most talented team they've had. Maybe you don't have the Ferraris in the garage, you know what I mean, to a degree, like a Keon Coleman or something like that. But you got a fleet of Corvettes. You know, you're pretty straight across the board. There's really not a lot of weak points on this team, which is what has me excited for next year. I think the defense is going to be lights out next year. I'm excited about that.
No, defense. I made this comment to Jen the other day. Really, kind of across the conference, when you look at it, defense is kind of going to be is going to carry the day, I think, this year. And when you look at and you hinted on it, you know, that 58% production that we return, that's almost completely high school dudes that are ready to take their role and are about to get drafted. You look at Shaheem Brown starting at safety. The other safety likely starter is probably going to be Conrad Hussey. You look at corner, Azaria Thomas, a third-year high school guy. He's probably going to be a first-round pick, in my opinion. Ventrell Cypress, okay, he's a transfer. Or Little Jr., okay, he's a transfer. Let's get to the defensive line. Pat Payton, high school. Joshua Farmer, high school. Offensive line, Darius Washington, high school. Mo Smith, high school. And on and on. 10, 11, literally half the team is high school guys that are upperclassmen or, the few rare guys like a Conrad Hussey. Even a transfer like a Juice Cryer, goes right to your point. He transferred here as a true freshman. He never even suited up for Northwestern. So people look at him, oh, you got Juice Cryer out of the portal last year. He didn't play no snaps, hardly a linebacker. He was a true freshman. And here he is tearing it up, ready to come have a breakout year as a sophomore.
If he'd have come out of high school, he wouldn't have played. If he'd have come out of high school, he wouldn't have played. So what's the difference? And I'll throw one set of numbers at you real quick, and I'll throw about you because you had me thinking about the returning production. Man, that's great, right? That helped Florida State get from 10 wins to 13 wins. All that, that's great. I'm not denying that returning production is important, but it's quality over quantity. If you return 50% of production from a 13-0 team or 100% production from an 0-13 team, I'm taking 50% all day long. And I actually, I looked it up a while back, and I think it was last year going into 2023, of the top 10 teams in returning production, only 50% of them had a better record, equal or better, the following year. But 8 out of 10 teams who had a top 10 portal class had a better record. So really the proof is in the pudding that it's better almost to go out and acquire those talented pieces than to just bring back, whatever you got, because you can return all the production if you want. If it's not good production, it doesn't mean anything.
Facts. Preaching.
Yeah, and I guess all the people whining about the portal or players, how many Keon Colemans will there ever be in a portal? Like, that's why I never understand this argument because, well, you didn't get a Keon Coleman to replace. Okay. I mean, great. We didn't get a Deion Sanders to replace Deion Sanders when he left, his position too. But those people are not there, there's not 1,000 of them running around, right? I mean,
Right.
that is just the truth. So I don't know. I am again looking really forward to the defense. Obviously, I think everybody is. I know I am. But honestly, as much as like some of these updates I see with the kids I see, I don't think this offense is going to be as bad as people think it's going to be. I don't think they're taking a step back in the least. I understand losing Keon Coleman based off of what I just said. How many Keon Colemans are there out there? But how many times was poor Keon just like smothered most of the game? Because I mean, I think now you've got you've got so many players there that can be used in different ways. I think this could be interesting this year on the offense. I really do.
Yeah.
And I really hope people, kind of just look forward to it. Let's see how it goes. I mean, nobody's making any guarantees, but if anything about Mike Norvell, he can scheme up an offense. And I really think he's got these tools this year. I think the offense is going to be better.
Yeah. I think it'll be more dynamic because you're going to use it differently. You have more options, I think, now. You're not as heavily concentrated. I think you will miss Jordan Travis. There's no doubt about that. He's a very efficient quarterback. I think the offense will go as far as DJU will take them. But I also think that when DJU, like a lot of people kind of, weren't high on him after the spring game, and that's fair. It wasn't, beautiful. But I think people also have to understand that first off, changing jerseys wasn't going to make him any better. That takes time. That takes spring, summer, into fall camp. He has not thrown for over 3,000 yards in one regular season yet, right? Okay. But Mike Norvell, throughout his career, from the time he was at Arizona State to Memphis to Florida State, he's never had a quarterback who's played, other than 2020, the COVID year that didn't play full season. He's never had a quarterback who started through the entire season, throw for less than 3,000 yards. Something's got to give. So you give him time, and they may be able to unlock him. And, I think what's funny, to Jen's point, is like when you say there's not a lot of Keon Colemans in the portal, that's very true coming in from the portal. But how do we know Malik Benson's not going to do what he did at Florida State? He could still be that guy. Maybe they just got him a little more under the radar because, what did we say when Jermaine left? Well, we're not going to be able to replace him. I mean, yeah, we got Jared Verse, but, he's not Jermaine Johnson. Turns out he might have been better. Now you bring in Marvin Jones Jr. All right, well, Jared Verse, man, it's first-round NFL draft pick. I don't know how we're going to replace him. Who knows, man? I don't put any of these guys in a box. I don't put any kind of ceiling on them because, again, you look at what DJU did at Clemson, criticized the offense, that they didn't use them right, and they fired the offensive coordinator. The passing game didn't get any better. It wasn't DJU's fault. You look at Oregon State. I get it. He had a pretty okay year. The completion percentage wasn't great. That's when you throw the ball deep a lot. That happens. But he also had nowhere near the receiving core and the talent around him that he's going to have in Tallahassee. And so I think you'll see DJU have his best year. And I think the offense will look different because you'll have more run, more deep shots. But I'm with Jen. I think it's going to be better than people think it is.
Yeah.
100%. The casual masses out there, yeah, there's no doubt it's going to be way, way better than they think. And I agree with Jen, even amongst Florida State people. I think, they're being a little underestimated. I keep going back to that offensive line. People act like, I don't know what they're acting like. They're acting like just because we didn't bring in a bunch of 5 stars in this class, it can't be any better. But I've watched the climb. I've watched them get better every single year. And to have Darius over there is something we've never went into a year. To have Mo Smith get healthy and now really, going into a senior year, going to be better than he's ever been. Richie Leonard is going to plug in, I have a feeling. Ferguson, whether it's Ferguson or Jones, steps up to beat him out. You're going to have a Mauler at that other guard position. Byers is going to be better. It's just going to be a better team. I think Roydell Williams, Trey Benson was a beast. I think Roydell Williams is a better fit for the offense. Just, we're going to see if you're going to be able to get it done or not, but I have 100% faith he will. I think Mike Norvell is going to be able to run a different offense. We're going to miss Jordan Travis. We're going to miss Keon. But just as Jesse and Jen alluded to, we've got different pieces at wide receiver. We've got those guys who can take the top off in Malik Benson. We've still got some bigger guys who can do that underneath stuff, catch the jump balls. We also have guys like Kentron Portier coming back. who has just got skill out of the yin yang if he can stay healthy. Ja'Kai Douglas, who can go out there and make all those plays. Jalen Lucas is a huge plus player. Is just be ready to unleash. But what I'm getting at here is what you alluded to about DJU. People look at DJU and they're like, he's just a wash with Jordan Travis when it comes to throwing balls. Like, yeah. But what was Jordan Travis when he got here? What was Trey Benson when he got here?
Mm-hmm.
Mike Norvell has shown he is going to get the absolute best out of that player, and that player is going to have the best statistical, year of their lives. Is DJU going to be the first one to end that trend that you spoke of? I don't think so. I think, I predicted somewhere around 3,200 yards, 35 touchdowns, combined between passing and running. I think that's what you end up, somewhere in that range if he can stay healthy. And the running game and the play action off that thing is going to be magnificent. And also along all this is also the schedule. The talent on the roster has just risen to a level. Our blue chip percentage is up over 50% now. If you want to count transfers, that's up close to 70%. If you don't want to count transfers, it's closer to 50. But still, it is the most talented team on paper. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see if we get those guys that break out and turn into all jersey types. But what people don't realize is like all of college football gets worse every year. Like half or like a third, whatever, a tiny percentage gets better. But it's everybody. It's not just Florida State that loses players and has all these things going. When you have a coach that's climbing, when you have a coach that's literally top 5 in the nation and your program is firing on all cylinders, the best place for a player to get developed, like reach their potential, it's Florida State. So yeah, just calm down, take a deep breath, listen to Jen. It's going to be better than you're expecting, just because there's a level of excellence within the program. There's a level of camaraderie, all that good stuff that when you go up against a Georgia Tech or whoever the case may be, you've got a staff that's been together for one more year. You've got an offensive line that's been together for one more year, and all that shit adds up. I can't wait. I'm fired up. Jeff Hill with a $20 super chat says, when Idiot Dabo said that the players in the portal are not good enough to play at Clemson, but yet he got beat by FSU, they went in the portal. Hell, he got beat by Miami too, and they've signed just as many portal players as we are. Yeah, Dabo's full of it, man. He's
God, I forgot they lost to Miami. Oh my God.
High school players are technically portal players too. It's like, yeah, and there's way fucking more of those. So I guess no high school players are good enough to play for you. It's he's just.
I was gonna say,
deal with it.
How do you say that right after you literally called all your players transfers? And it's a stupid thing to say, man. I mean, you don't think Keon Coleman wouldn't have made that offense better? I mean, if they'd have got Keon Coleman, they're probably in the ACC championship or something because they had no pass game. They had no deep threat. So, like, that's just a ridiculous comment. And man,
of the draft, 36% over a third is transfer players, but they're not good enough.
Right. And I mean, you'll see that first game, man. We talked about it on our show today, just the kind of week 1 slate and what we're looking at that first week, man. They got Georgia coming up. I mean, I'm not saying that like Clemson is ready to move on from Dabo, but I think you got a little level of staleness there. And I think if you come out and you kind of get clapped by Georgia, which is probably what most of us think is going to happen, I think you're going to have some people start to question, what are we doing here? And I think, man, it's like you've lost the coordinators. You haven't really replicated that success yet. You got blown out by Duke last year. Man, if you come out weak against Georgia and then you drop another game or two, man, I think people are going to start kind of looking at Clemson a little bit sideways, especially when you have a guy who's not going in the portal when you're seeing other teams have success. It's always like the shiny toy syndrome. Like everybody sees like, okay, well, Florida State did it in the portal and now they're having success. Why aren't we doing this? And you start to get, you want the shiny toy. And if you're not doing that and you're losing, that's a bad combination. You're arguing with fans, Tyler from Spartanburg, that whole situation. Like, man, if they get whooped by Georgia, man, it's going to be tough for Clemson. I think that's going to, that shine is going to start to wear off.
Yeah, you're hampering yourself for no reason. You're cutting off your arm despite your freaking other one. It makes no sense. The only possible way, I've talked about this on a ton. There's a way you can ignore the portal. The only way you can do it is if you're somebody like Georgia and you're recruiting at such an insane rate, 90% blue chip ratio, that you can lose a 30-year class and you're still 67% blue chip ratio.
Yeah.
That was never Clemson's thing. Clemson's bag has always been recruit at a top 10 level and keep your guys, have great retainment and all that stuff. That worked, but that was before the portal. It doesn't work anymore with the portal. Go ahead, Jen.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I mean, before, like, Clemson was recruiting very well out of high school for a good while there. I mean, they had all the top QBs, right? I mean, we're looking at one that is now playing at Florida State, right? That was a 5-star quarterback. Like, they had all these things going for them, and everything changed on such a dime when the portal became more. And honestly, I don't know, but I feel like, because even with Dabo's old staff, because they would recruit so well, all these things, they would have really good position strength with their recruiting class, right? They would have a really good offensive line class. Defensive tackle we were all jealous of Clemson's defensive tackles for years, and we all know this, right? Like, we were all jealous. And now it seems to be, even in their high school recruiting, I don't know. I don't feel that same jealous, like that jealous,
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I think if you're starting to lose your high school recruiting, and I'm with everybody, I think portal recruiting is so important. I really do. But you got to have one or the other. You got to be Georgia and Alabama, or, have to work it another way. You can't just go off of one way anymore. I just don't think you do.
Yeah. Well, and I will say too, like with the thing is, I mean, Dabo's not completely off base. I'll give him that much credit, because so far now, I firmly believe, and I'll go to my grave saying this, Florida State would have been the team to break the mold. They would have been that team to go with the transfer route and win a national championship had Jordan Travis stayed healthy. They made it in the playoffs, all that good stuff. But so far, the high school, elite recruiting has been the recipe. There's still the teams that are winning the national championships. But I think the thing that you're seeing now is even Georgia, they may not hit the portal heavy, but they still use it. I mean, they got Trevor Etienne, out of Florida or whatever. They still take pieces. Jahmyr Gibbs was huge for Alabama. He was a transfer too. The thing with Clemson is the refusing to use it at all. I mean, imagine if an NFL coach came out and said, we're not going to use, free agents. We're only going to go from the draft. Like, he'd be fired by the sundown. And it's also, it's kind of like carrying a bucket of water with a hole in it. You have players transferring out. Bo Collins, one of their best, Makuba or something like that. He transferred out too. Some of their best players transferred out. You can only add so many from the high school ranks. You need to be doing what's best for your roster by adding some guys. Maybe you don't take 10 or 15 transfers, but there's no reason you can't take 3 or 4. There's no reason you can't take a guy to provide competitive depth to Cade Klubnik, because, I've seen people talking about in the comments, their biggest problem right now is turnovers. He's a turnover machine. He does what he wants. He ignores play calls and does all that stuff. But you got to live with him because he's all you got. You don't have anything to turn to.
Yeah, there's no doubt. You have to either be sufficient at all 3 or damn sure elite at 2. That's just what it is. And that's what I was saying. Like, yeah, Clemson definitely used to hit way better on wide receivers. They were on a crazy run of getting like the #1 quarterback every other year. They got greedy and tried to do it every year. That's where everything fucked up, when they got Hunter Johnson, Trevor, all them back to back, and it got fucked up. But yeah, even then, they weren't recruiting how Georgia is at this crazy 90% clip. They'd be like 5th, 6th, 7th every year, and they kept their guys. Those defensive lines she was talking about, all those guys were draft eligible and all ready to go first, second round, and they came back for another year. Unheard of, free NIL, all these things. It was like the biggest story in college football. But nowadays, you just can't do that. You either have to be off the chain like Georgia, or you have to be like you talked about, Ohio State. Ohio State, they are an elite. They recruit top 5 high school every year, but they're also top 10 in the portal. They may only sign 6 to 8 guys, but they're getting 6 to 8 beasts to come in here, beast wide receivers, a quarterback to take over and compete for a Heisman, whatever the case may be. The problem with the Clemson trying to just ignore the portal is you're trying to do the good old way, the same way you always have. But, Florida State down the road, when somebody graduates, they're getting a dude out of the portal who's immediately, possibly an NFL-type draft pick, and you're throwing a true freshman out there. It just don't jive. And he's talking about, we've got 125 people. We don't have a retainment issue. You don't. Clemson, you have great retainment, but your high school recruiting is not good enough. You've got to flip that roster. Used to be, only, Alabama, they would roll their roster, but not that many people were really that crazy with it, really turning the bottom of that thing. And there was limitations, but now there isn't. All that's taken out completely. So you've got to Florida State, who year in, year out is just completely filling all their gaps with grown men and literally getting better every single year. When you're on the high school plan, you can't get better every year. You just can't. It goes in waves. There is a cyclical nature that has always existed in college football, and that's why the blue chip ratio worked perfectly. That's why you could look exactly on high school ratings, because that's all the data that was available. That's all you had outside of JUCO, which has always been extremely negligible and rare in issues like that. We are in a brand new world, and like you said, he's just ignoring this giant data set. 36% of the draft, just ignore it. We don't need any of those guys. And it just doesn't work. Georgia is literally about the only people that could possibly do it. Because, yeah, sure, they lost 15 guys from their 2022 class, but they still got 15 blue chips left. And just in my opinion, what Florida State's doing is enough, being whatever it is, number 12 in high school, and number 4 and number 5, number 6, whatever it is, transfer portal.
6.
You can get to an elite.
It's 6, George.
There's like 4 different services, so there's all these different ones.
I'm only saying this because there's another team that keeps bragging about theirs, and they are 16. So I like the 6 versus 16 narrative. It's better for me. So okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm with you, man. The game has changed since the way they found success worked. It's changed since then, and I mean, like I hate whatever. We can pile on him if we want to, but I have respect for him, so I'm not going to be that guy. But if you want an example of someone you've seen not adapt and die, it's Jimbo Fisher, man. I mean, like what he did in 2013 worked, but then the style of game changed. That slow-paced offense, the way they did things, it didn't work. And now he's out of a job. He's in the unemployment line. He's at Planet Fitness in Tallahassee. So, like, I mean, again, I got nothing against Jimbo, because I got to watch us win a national championship because of him. But it just goes to show you that, like, you have to adapt. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to adapt, man. I mean, nothing against Jimbo personally, because I still respect him. I hate the way he left the program. But if you don't adapt, that's what's going to happen. And if Dabo doesn't adapt, he's probably going to be looking, he might be going to, Kirby or Nick Saban's not running his coach reform school anymore, but maybe Kirby Smart will take him on as an analyst or something. I mean, you gotta adapt.
The scariest thing is for Clemson fans is that, what is possible as a high school only guy like he's trying to be over there is he will be good every 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years. He'll have a good team. It'll be like Auburn was with Gus Malzahn. So they just got to pray he don't go out there and kill it and then earn himself 5 more years of mediocrity.
Yeah.
Because I could be totally wrong, but if you don't have elite talent, you aren't going to be elite in this game. He was able to do it before, different than Saban, different than these guys. He wasn't turning his roster. He was just bringing them in. But like y'all both talked about, he was bringing in smaller classes, but it was number 1 this, number 1 that, number 1 this, number 1 that. That bite isn't there of, So, he's no Georgia and not even Clemson of old, so it's just not going to work. You can't just look a gift horse in the mouth and say no. And it's like one thing to talk about your philosophy and all that, but just the nastiness and the snark he speaks with, they're not good enough to play on our team, all that shit. Yeah, lose me with all that.
To tell someone their method didn't work when they just beat you last year is kind of, it's an asinine thing to say to begin with. But no, man, I agree. It's just, I think from a Clemson perspective, not a Dabo perspective, you got to be careful you don't end up like Nebraska. They fired Bo Pelini for winning 10 games every year. Now they would give their kidney for a 10-win season. And people have to remember, and that's something that Clemson said when he got heated with Tyler from Spartanburg. It was like, they're spoiled, man. They don't remember that we were mid for 40 freaking years. So, like, you better don't look this in the mouth. That can be
true, and what we're saying can also be true.
Right.
That's just like I love Bobby Bowden. He's fucked up hiring his family.
Right,
I love Bobby Bowden to death.
It's funny, man, because like Michael on our show today actually brought this up, and he said this may not be a good analogy, but I thought it was perfect, man. When you look at the kind of the end of Bowden's tenure and where Dabo's at right now, we know Bowden, his success got him a runway. That's the same thing that's happening with Dabo. Bobby messed up when he hired his son as the offensive coordinator. We know that. Everybody knows that's what led to the downfall and him being.
And just to give Bobby, Bobby did what had to be done. One of the baddest.
Right.
I'm not hating.
No, I I would never badmouth Bobby, but obviously we know the Jeff Bowden hire was a bad hire, and that kind of screwed things up when Mark Richt left. You look at who he hired, Brandon Streeter or whatever his name was last year. That was only 1 year. You promoted from within with a defensive coordinator, but you don't have Venables anymore. You don't have either of the national championship coordinators anymore. Like, we all knew Dabo was a face. He's a CEO coach. He has not replicated the success without those guys yet. And so can he do that? And that's the question. And the only thing I want to touch on is I know Jimbo, one of the comments, I know Jimbo left this program in shambles. 100%. I get it. That guy. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I have to bring it back to I sat in Pasadena and watched this team win a national championship. You don't know how many times you're going to get to do that in your lifetime. I also sat in row 1 behind their bench and watched us get beat by Jacksonville State. So, like, man, I will forever be thankful for that moment and that night in Pasadena.
No doubt.
Hate me if you want, but it's a memory I'll never forget. So,
well, I'll close y'all off with one. I'll give y'all one more analogy because I was talking about this with John Swafford the other day. John Swafford in the late 80s was preaching, guys, you can't be scared to take chances. We got to go take chances. We've got to innovate in this media game. I know basketball is number 1 and we're the richest conference, but the future is in football money, and we've got to make these moves before other people. We can't be scared. Talking about conference realignment, adding teams, doing the things necessary. We fast forward 15, 20 years towards the end of this career. We don't want to take any chances. It's just all about setting up a nest egg so he can retire. Run business the way he wants to do it. Deal with his buddies at Raycom. Deal with his buddy that he knows, his son at Raycom. Do these different things. And that's what I'm seeing with Clemson and my guy Dabo. At the beginning, it was hire the best coaches. Go get Brent Venables. Go get these amazing offensive coaches. Do all these things. And then it turned into what? We're not even going to touch the portal. We're not going to touch that shit. We're going to hire within. You think if the portal came out in 2011, Dabo would have been using it? You damn right he would. But apparently I have static again. So I'm going to let you guys go ahead and plug what y'all have going on. I'll back out, come back, and we'll call it a day.
Oh, man.
Right.
Yeah, just, as far as us, like, we're just excited, man. I'm working on the preseason magazine right now. So this is something that we do every year. I'm glad it's summertime because it takes a few months to put together. It usually ends up being about 40 to 50 pages. It's a digital magazine, so it's not actually something you get on a shelf, but it will be on our website. I'm shooting for the July-ish release date, but I'm always late on that because it just takes so long to do. Like I said, it's 40 to 50 freaking pages. But we go through, schedule breakdown, position group breakdowns, and all that stuff. And I love doing it because this is what gets me prepared for the season. Really digging into every roster and everything like that. And, so far I've pretty much been spot on with most of my predictions since we started doing this. I'm not going to tell you, like, I'm a humble guy. I have a perfect record so far. From the 10-3 season to the 13-1 season, called all the shots so far. So, like, we just put in the time and the research, and that's all that's saying. But that's what we got going on, man. Just talking about the preseason magazine that we do, just kind of trying to get that done. It's a long, slow summer, so that's why we have to have some side projects.
We appreciate you coming on and keep killing it over there. Again, if you guys aren't at Plant the Spear right here on YouTube, if you aren't subscribed there, if you aren't subscribed here, get that done. Jen also has a show that she's doing on Monday with our guy KP, who just popped up in the chat. Tell the people what you got going on, what they can expect Monday.
Well, I mean, I have a feeling right now what we can expect Monday is maybe some fun on, Bubba Cunningham's, part, because I feel like he needs some fun there. Like, that's going to be fun. But yeah, Monday I'm guessing we're probably going to do about the same time, right? 9:15 Eastern?
Yep, that's the time.
That's the time. So, yeah. Join us on the roast on Monday at 9:15. Tiny Hat and I might have something fun planned. We'll see.
Chip
We
Western
might have a guest. Yes, there we go.
Maybe somebody else. We'll see.
Absolutely.
All righty. Well, I guess that's what she's got for you on that. Come see us Monday for the roast. We'll also be here Sunday for our regular show. Who knows what we'll have figured out for that one, but again, it's all about the Noles. We'll leave you guys with some of my guy Trub Life. and we will see you guys next time. Go Noles.
Hey, man. They FSU versus everybody. Let's go. First off, fuck Bama in the road tide. Fuck Tuscaloosa in every city that's close by. Bitch ass hillbilly redneck fans. Auburn almost caught y'all slacking like dress pants. Michigan trash, they ain't got a damn chance. Only Wolverine I respect is X-Man. Keen ass coach got exposed, still in plays. Damn right I'm bitter, y'all sweeter than lemonade. Texas ain't shit to rave about. The Longhorns only good at a steakhouse. Had y'all like number 3, I was like, no way. Y'all lost to Oklahoma, which means y'all just okay. And Washington not important. Y'all be some ducks, acting like that's vital as an organ. If we played y'all, we kick that ass Chuck Norris. Y'all stay boring, only thing in that bitch is a forest. Let's set the record straight. Fuck your team if it ain't Florida State. 13-0, undefeated, damn, what more it take? Denied our presence, that should be a crime, they jealous. Probably get in if the Gators wasn't 5. Miami better not say nada. Last time they won a championship, food stamps had paper dollars. Tried to